Okay, let's dive in. We've got this really interesting contrast playing out based on our sources. You have the Free DC chant down at Out
Yeah,
Field.
lots of energy there. Very local.
Right, exactly. And then on the other side, you have this really controversial meeting up in Alaska. It's quite a stark difference when you put them side by side.
Definitely. And that contrast kind of sets up what we want to dig into today.
It really does. So that's our mission for this deep dive. We're going to unpack these recent events, things that have really grabbed public attention. Obviously, the big one is that Alaska meeting, Trump and Putin.
Right.
But we're not stopping there. We want to look at the ripple effects. You know, what does it mean for American democracy? How does it change perceptions of leadership?
And even those personal stories, right? People shifting their political views. We've looked at a whole range of sources, articles, reports, analyses to pull out the key insights for you.
Exactly. It's not just about skimming the headlines.
Yeah, definitely not. We want to give you that shortcut to being genuinely well-informed, connect the dots between things that might seem separate.
Offer a different angle.
Yeah, get into the why behind it all, hopefully uncover some of those aha moments about, the political landscape today, the challenges to democratic norms.
We're really going to dig into the details.
Yeah.
Because that's where the useful stuff is, right?
Yeah.
Helps you see the bigger picture.
Precisely. So let's start with the main event, the one that really set the stage, the Alaska summit. The sources paint a pretty unsettling picture.
Leading up to it, there was definitely this sense of expectation. At least that was the narrative coming from the White House.
Oh, yeah. The talking points, the statements, they were hinting at, potential progress, maybe even a ceasefire in Ukraine, some kind of a tangible step.
People were hoping for a breakthrough, weren't they? Both here and internationally.
They were. But the reality, according to the reports we've reviewed, it was starkly different in terms of actual American gains or progress on peace. Nothing. Zip. Zero. That was the consensus. It was just a void where breakthroughs were supposed to be.
Wow.
Instead, what many observers described was a full-on collapse of American strength, dignity, and credibility. That's a direct quote from one analysis.
A collapse. That's strong language.
It is. The event itself was called one of the most surreal, humiliating, and flat-out embarrassing spectacles in recent memory. We saw one quote from a veteran diplomat calling it a diplomatic disaster unfolding in real time.
Just devastating for those who hope for something positive.
Absolutely. And the visuals. They really seemed to capture that feeling.
Oh, the visuals were something else. Those images went everywhere, didn't they? U.S. soldiers kneeling
on American soil, yeah. Literally rolling out a red carpet for Vladimir Putin.
While Trump stood there, clapping, grinning.
Clapping, grinning, apparently sweating quite a bit. It was a scene that just, like you said, went global, sparked commentary everywhere.
You can imagine.
Yeah.
The symbolism alone.
That's what the analyses jumped on, the symbolism. It wasn't just protocol, it was seen as, submission.
Submission, wow.
One source called it America being used as a prop in Putin's propaganda reel. A calculated humiliation, basically. That's the phrase that kept popping up.
A calculated humiliation orchestrated by the Russians.
That was the strong suggestion. And Putin's reaction, apparently he couldn't stop smirking. Just smirking right there in Trump's face. Enjoying it.
Unbelievable. And wasn't there something about Lavrov's T-shirt?
Oh, right. Putin's foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, he walks in wearing a USSR T-shirt.
No way.
Yeah. Like a direct taunt, a reminder of the old Soviet Empire, kind of signaling, as one expert put it, we own this guy.
Just rubbing it in.
Totally. And then you contrast that warmth, almost deference for Putin, with how Trump treated Zelensky, Ukraine's president, in a separate meeting.
Right, that was earlier. How was that described?
Cold, dismissive, awkward, no warm handshake, no smiles, just a stiff brush off, according to multiple accounts.
So the contrast couldn't be clearer. It really reinforces that narrative about shifting dynamics.
Absolutely. Makes the perceived power dynamic incredibly obvious.
Okay, so let's talk about the supposed reason for the meeting Putin's peace plan. What were the details there? Because it sounds like it wasn't much of a plan.
Not really, no. When you unpack it, like our sources did, it becomes clear pretty quickly Russia was demanding the Donbas region.
Which is still largely Ukrainian-controlled, right?
Yeah.
And industrially important.
Exactly. And also other key areas like Zaporizhia, where that huge nuclear power plant is. Very strategic.
Okay, so big demands. What was Putin offering in return?
According to our sources, absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
Except this hollow promise that Ukrainians could still speak Ukrainian in their own country.
That's insulting.
Many analysts called it just that. They saw it not as a peace deal, but as pure extortion, demanding land they couldn't take on the battlefield.
And what was Trump's role in this? Was he pushing back?
Not according to the reports. He was described consistently as parroting Putin's line, telling Ukraine, telling Europe, you better do this deal.
He actually said that.
Apparently advised Zelensky directly, make a deal. Russia's strong, you're weak, you better make a deal.
But wait, didn't Trump promise consequences before the summit if Putin didn't agree to a ceasefire? Sanctions and stuff?
He did publicly promise severe consequences, but yeah, that promise wasn't fulfilled, widely noted.
So the irony is thick there. A meeting supposedly about peace while the war grinds on.
And missiles were apparently still hitting Ukrainian cities even as they met.
Yeah.
And Trump seemed to be, well, flattering Putin instead of confronting him.
Okay, and if the diplomacy wasn't bad enough, there was also operational sloppiness.
Oh, yeah. Behind the scenes, it sounds like a bit of a shambles. Trump's own staffers apparently left classified or at least confidential documents just sitting in a hotel printer.
You're kidding. What kind of documents?
A 7-page agenda for the meeting, the detailed seating chart for the lunch they had planned.
Just in the printer. Anyone could have found them.
Seems like it. One report just called it how sloppy and careless this whole operation was. Raises serious questions about competence in such a high-stakes meeting, doesn't it?
It really does. Incredible.
And that blunder, might connect to the political outcome, too. People wondered why that planned lunch got canceled.
Okay. What's the thinking there?
The suggestion from many sources is that Putin felt he'd already won. He got his propaganda victory just from the visual.
The red carpet, the difference.
Exactly, the perceived humiliation. He didn't need the lunch to cement that narrative. He got what he came for.
And how was Trump described afterwards? His demeanor?
Pretty consistently negative. Reports said he looked weak, sweaty, and beaten, drained, defeated, slouched, unhappy.
Wow. Any specific descriptions?
One reporter vividly said he looked like he's about to lose his lunch.
Oof. And Putin?
Putin, on the other hand, apparently walked away smirking, sporting a smirk so wide it could split his face.
So the contrast in how they appeared leaving the meeting was just as stark as the reception.
Absolutely. For most observers, there was little doubt who came out looking like the winner.
Okay, so that covers the summit itself. But the trip also seemed to reignite these persistent concerns about leadership fitness, public perception. Let's get into that in section 2, the cognitive shadow.
Right, because beyond the diplomacy, the Alaska trip really put Trump's physical and verbal conduct back under a microscope.
Like that walk down the red carpet we mentioned.
Exactly. The difficulty walking a straight line, the sort of zigzagging, the stumbling, it was very visible.
And people noticed, started talking.
Oh, yeah. Reports said there was people whispering, wondering about his age, his health.
And how did the analyses frame this? Medically, I mean.
Well, several sources, medical observers, journalists citing experts, noted these incidents were, quote, consistent with balance issues, neurological decline, and in many cases, dementia.
Dementia. That's serious.
Very serious. Though, importantly, the sources always added that disclaimer. They weren't diagnosing anything.
Right, just observing behaviors.
Exactly. But the point they made was that these public displays of perceived weakness, plain and simple, especially when meeting an adversary like Putin, are alarming.
Because it potentially signals issues with, what, decision-making? Composure under pressure?
Precisely. Executive functions, things you absolutely need in a global leader. And then, on top of the physical stuff, there were the verbal slips.
Ah, yes. Referring to Alaska as Russia.
Repeatedly. At the press conference right after the summit, while standing on American soil. It wasn't just once, according to the reports. It was multiple times.
Which, again, just raises more questions about his cognitive state at that moment.
It does, and these weren't the only bizarre anecdotes raising questions.
What else came up in the sources? I remember reading something about the White House roof.
Yeah, that was a startling claim. Reports alleged Trump climbed onto the White House roof, and when asked about it, started rambling about building nukes up there.
Building nukes on the White House roof. I mean...
It's an incredible image, isn't it? And the analysis wasn't just that it was weird, but that it could represent someone hallucinating military projects out of thin air.
Which is terrifying for a commander-in-chief.
Deeply concerning. And there were other claims, too, like Trump supposedly asserting personal ownership of the White House, of D.C. itself.
Saying things
like, I bought all of this. This is mine. Mine, mine, mine. Reports framed that as chilling, coming from someone with his influence, likened it to a child having a tantrum.
That suggests a real detachment from reality.
That was the implication. And then there was the language pattern issue, the word grass.
Oh, right. Tell us about that one.
Sources described this strange looping of words. Apparently, during one public event, he got fixated on the word grass and repeated it 8 times in under 2 minutes.
8 times, just grass, grass, grass.
Something like that. And medical observers quoted in the report specifically pointed to that kind of repetition as a classic sign of cognitive trouble, like the brain getting stuck.
All of this, understandably, fuels the scrutiny around his health and judgment.
Absolutely. And it connects back to older controversies too, doesn't it? Like that infamous doctor's letter.
The one claiming he was the healthiest individual ever elected, which the doctor later said Trump dictated himself.
That's the one. And more recently, his so-called health updates have been more about bragging about, like, golf scores and tournament wins than actual clinical details.
Leaving a lot of questions unanswered about his real condition.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And it makes his own comments about cognitive tests seem, well, interesting.
You mean boasting about acing those tests?
Right.
Identifying the animals?
Exactly. He focuses on being able to name a whale, a tiger, a giraffe. But our sources point out those are usually the warm-up questions.
Not the hard part.
Not the part that really tests memory or higher cognitive function. So clinging to those examples as proof of sharpness, experts found that very telling.
And there was that inappropriate story he told.
Yeah, the locker room story during a speech, cited as just rambling, inappropriate, deeply concerning, not presidential behavior by any standard.
It all ends up to a pattern for some observers.
It does. Sources mention past speculation by neurologists about possible mini-strokes and observations that his repeated word slurring, inability to finish sentences, bizarre tangents, they saw those as consistent with serious brain issues.
So not isolated incidents, but a recurring pattern raising serious questions.
Yeah, that's the picture painted by these cumulative reports, concerns about fitness for office.
And how does this play out under pressure?
Yeah.
In a crisis? There was that story from Governor Newsom in California.
Right. Gavin Newsom talked about a phone call with Trump during a National Guard deployment in L.A., a serious situation.
Newsom expected to talk strategy, safety, right? Lives were potentially at risk.
That was his expectation, a
Yeah.
serious conversation.
But what did he get?
According to Newsom's account in our sources, Trump spent the call bragging about Mad GA hats, recycling old nicknames like New Scum for Newsom, and just reliving his debate performance against Kamala Harris.
During a crisis call about a National Guard deployment.
That's the report, which many analysts see as showing a profound detachment from reality. It's described flatly as not leadership.
And the implication is worrying.
Extremely. The point made is that cognitive decline, if that's what it is, isn't something you just shake off. It suggests his ability to govern was already compromised and likely would only deteriorate further.
A fundamental inability to focus when it matters most.
Yeah.
Huge implications.
Enormous. For everything national security, domestic policy, foreign relations, it suggests a leader potentially struggling with the basic demands of the presidency.
Okay, let's shift gears now. Despite that spectacle in Alaska, the pushback hasn't stopped. Let's move to Section 3. Pushback and new strategies of resistance. Internationally, Europe and Ukraine seem to be holding firm.
That's a really crucial point coming through in the sources. European leaders were absolutely not fooled by what happened in Alaska.
They saw through it.
Completely. They are described as standing shoulder to shoulder with Ukraine. You see joint statements from the EU, NATO, G7, all reaffirming support, rejecting Russian claims.
So no wavering on Ukraine's borders.
None. Strong statements saying borders are not up for negotiation. They're demanding ironclad security guarantees for Ukraine's future, rejecting any Russian veto on NATO membership.
And sanctions.
Promises to keep ramping up sanctions, not just broad ones, but targeted ones, specific industries, banks, oligarchs designed to make Putin feel the pain, directly hit the war effort and his inner circle.
And Zelensky. How's he holding up under the pressure?
Incredibly resilient, according to reports. His position remains unwavering. First a ceasefire, then we talk, not the other way around.
So the Alaska meeting didn't weaken that international resolve at all.
Not one bit. If anything, it might have solidified it. It showed key allies that they couldn't rely on that particular channel for constructive engagement.
And domestically, we saw resistance too, like that Free DC chant.
Yeah, back to Audi Field. That chant had real energy, and sources framed it as a direct shot against what many see as Donald Trump's tightening grip on the Capitol, a grassroots cry from the city itself.
And it wasn't just symbolic, was it? There was concrete action.
That's the compelling part. You connect that expression to Mayor Muriel Bowser and Police Chief Pamela Smith pushing back.
Against the DOJ trying to take over the D.C. police.
Exactly. Trying to put a loyalist in charge, a clear federal overreach into local affairs. And critically, a federal judge basically signaled the move was illegal.
And the DOJ backed down.
They did, which demonstrated, as commentators noted, that when you stand firm, when you call the bluff, they retreat.
So Free D.C. became more than a chant.
It became a rallying cry for standing up to authoritarianism everywhere, a real example of local defiance working against centralized control attempts.
Now, speaking of new strategies, Gavin Newsom's approach, it's certainly different.
It really is. Newsom basically deciding to give Trump a taste of his own medicine, as the sources put it.
Trolling him, hitting his ego.
Exactly. Mocking his appearance, health, stamina, even the tiny hands thing, but using Trump's own style.
All caps, insults, that kind of thing.
Precisely. Like sharing an unflattering photo of Trump looking, quote, sickly, or posting things like, Trump just fled the podium with Putin, no questions, nothing, total low energy.
Wow, that sounds exactly like a Trump tweet.
The man looked like he just ate 3 buckets of KFC with Vlad. Sad. It mirrors Trump's style almost perfectly. He even did a parody Nobel Peace Prize claim.
And how did that go down? I saw reports about Fox News.
Yeah, the Fox News meltdown, calling Newsom childish. But many saw that as selective outrage, suggesting the trolling is working.
Because it hits Trump's brand, his image of dominance.
That's the analysis. His brand is built on perceived strength, so this undermines it. Remember the California flag incident?
Vaguely. Remind me.
Newsom posted, "Long live the free state of California," met with MAGA fury online. Newsom's response, "MAGA Republicans are triggered by a flag. Snowflakes."
Turning their own insult back on them.
Exactly. Or the baby stairs mockery. Donald is finished. Many are saying he can't even do the big stairs anymore. Sad.
So the significance is...
It's about rewriting the playbook, chipping away at that aura of invincibility, because for Trump, perception is everything.
He shows he can dish it out but can't take it. Exposes that thin skin.
That seems to be the goal. Undermine the dominance by using his own tactics. Show that his perceived power isn't absolute. It's a calculated strategy.
Okay, fascinating stuff. Now let's shift to something more personal. Section 4. The human face of political shifts and the enduring fight for democracy. To really get this, we need individual stories, like Danny's.
Right. Danny's story is powerful, described as someone who was full speed ahead on the MAGA train, but now he's completely out, done with it.
And his background. Conservative South Florida, church roots, but also struggles.
Yeah, significant struggles, substance abuse, mental health issues, and he served a decade in prison.
So being locked up, cut off,
yeah,
that made him vulnerable.
That's how the sources frame it. The information he got was filtered, simplified, emotionally charged. His isolation, his struggles, it made Trump's message resonate.
The message about white Americans being blamed. The forgotten men.
Exactly. It tapped into his fears, his feeling of being written off. It felt like a lifeline, a narrative where he was the victim.
And he struggled with the idea of white privilege, given his own poverty.
Profoundly. It didn't compute with his experience, which made him really receptive to the MAGA idea that he was the one being discriminated against. It offered an identity.
But then something changed. A turning point in prison. A friendship.
A pivotal friendship. With Rashawn, a black Muslim man from the same community, but who got a totally different sentence despite being younger.
And Rashawn explains why.
Calmly, according to the story, he told Danny, "When the judge looked at you, he saw his son. When he looked at me, he saw a thug. That's the difference."
Wow, that must have hit hard.
Like a freight train, Danny said. It made systemic racism real, tangible, not just an abstract concept.
And Rashawn helped him learn more.
Introduced him to books like The New Jim Crow. Showed him the data on mass incarceration, racial bias. This new information, combined with Rashawn's personal perspective, it started creating cracks in Danny's beliefs.
He started seeing connections, like Trump's language about immigrants.
Yeah, calling them thugs, rapists, vermin. It sounded hauntingly similar to the stereotypes Rashawn described facing.
And Trump's character started to bother him too, mocking McCain, the grabbing women comments.
Exactly. Even while others around him were saying, "Oh, it's just mean tweets," Danny realized it reflected something deeper. something that clashed with his developing values.
So it was a gradual process fueled by that personal connection and new information.
Absolutely. Undoing those deep-seated beliefs.
But leaving Miguel wasn't easy, was it? He felt isolated.
Extremely isolated. He described it as exile, being on an island. His old community rejected him, and liberals were initially distrustful, saying things like, "You helped cause this mess."
That highlights the huge personal cost involved in changing your whole worldview.
It really does, and it shows the power of echo chambers. Remember, he said when he was deep in it, consuming only Fox News, Tucker Carlson, Hannity, Candace Owens, challenges just made him double down.
Insults didn't work.
They backfired. It was only after prison when he got exposure to different voices online, black voices, progressive voices, that he felt he could actually listen and grow.
So what's his focus now?
His mission is clear. Speaking out against it, sharing his story on social media, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, trying to reach people, and checking misinformation in his own community.
Using his background to connect with people who might not listen otherwise.
Exactly. He feels white people have to step up and do the work to dismantle white supremacy, and he has access, others don't. His core message.
Relationships change minds, not insults. Growth comes from exposure.
That's it. Insults don't change minds. Relationships do. Growth comes from exposure. It's about personal connection and diverse perspectives fostering real change.
Such a powerful story. And it connects, interestingly, to broader calls to defend democracy itself, like former President Obama's recent speech.
Yeah, Obama's speech to Texas Democrats was framed as a significant wake-up call. Breaking his usual silence on some issues to talk about the state of democracy and Republican strategies he sees as undermining it.
What was his main argument?
He argued that under Trump, America slipped from being the shining example of free elections and started looking more like the countries we used to warn others about.
Places where power rigs the system, suppresses opposition.
That was his point exactly. He argued directly that Republicans know their ideas just don't sell anymore to a majority, so their strategy becomes trying to rig the game through manipulating elections.
Like gerrymandering,
Yeah.
redistricting.
He detailed that specifically, how it allows politicians pick their voters instead of the other way around.
Did he have an analogy for that?
A really effective one. He compared it to playing basketball, and the second your opponent starts losing, they fire the referee and replace him with their cousin.
Huh. Makes the point pretty clearly. Undermining fair play.
Totally. He mentioned things like California's independent commissions as better, fairer ways to draw districts, showing alternatives exist.
And he brought his personal perspective into it, growing up after the Civil Rights Act.
He did,
Yeah.
emphasizing that democracy isn't guaranteed. It's something we have to fight for every single generation. A warning that progress isn't permanent.
We can lose it if we let our guard down.
That was his regent message. If we let our guard down, we can lose it. He stressed that preserving the integrity of the process matters for everyone.
Because when the process is fair,
Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but the people decide. It was a really fundamental call to action, reminding everyone that democratic norms are fragile and need constant defense.
well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. From the spectacle in Alaska, the questions about leadership,
To Danny's incredibly personal journey out of an echo chamber.
the new strategies of resistance, like in D.C. or Newsom's tactics.
And finishing with Obama's call to protect the very foundations of the democratic process.
Yeah, all these threads, power, perception, personal change, systemic challenges, they really do weave together into this larger story about where we are right now.
And understanding all that for you listening, that's the whole point. Connecting these complex dynamics, seeing the different forms of resistance, it helps you be better informed.
As you look past the headlines, see the bigger currents.
Exactly. It gives you tools to assess information more critically, to engage more thoughtfully. That's the value we hope to bring, something more than just the daily news cycle. It equips you, really.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up, maybe a final thought for you to chew on, something to explore on your own.
Okay, let's hear it.
Well, if this landscape shows us truth and trust are constantly under attack, but also that individuals can find their way out of echo chambers through connection, then what's the most effective way for you personally to foster real dialogue and critical thinking in your own circles? Beyond the headlines, beyond the easy sound bites.
That's a really good question. How do you build those bridges? How do you encourage that deeper thinking?
Something to mull over. It's definitely crucial. Okay, thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.
Until next time, stay curious, stay sharp, and keep digging into the knowledge that matters.